So today our topic is from darkness to light. Now with Christmas less than a week away and the year end just around the corner, it's a perfect time for us to continue not only to reflect upon the year, but to think of the gifts that came with our experiences this year. And yes, there have been gifts. If we're honest with ourselves, we know that this past year was probably not the only one we will recall as one that brought darkness and made it difficult to navigate. We've all had dark years. We've all been through difficult times. And we've all had those dark days when the light of day could not come soon enough. But it's what we understand about the darkness that actually helps us become better people and learn to appreciate and experience the meaning of the light. So I want to share a message that Joseph Campbell wrote that is very important and meaningful. He said that one thing that comes out in myths is that at the bottom of the abyss comes the voice of salvation. The black moment is the moment when the real message of transformation is going to come, because at the darkest moment comes the light. Now, the Bible is full of quotes related to darkness and light. And there are three I want to share today that I think are really valuable in helping us understand this. First one is from Luke 1, verses 78 to 79. And it says, "The rising sun will come to us from heaven to shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the path of peace." The second one is from John 1, verse 5. "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Light shall shine out of darkness." And the third one from John 8, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Now that's what Jesus himself said. I am the light of the world. And he really was a light in the world, especially at a time when darkness had taken over and people were really afraid of what the future looked like. You see, people embraced Jesus as that light of the world for a number of reasons. They saw him as the hope. They saw him as the reason for them to see that the light would come forward in their lives. And that's where the whole rebirth concept came. You see, the concept of being rebaptized or born again, it's not the act of doing those things that actually makes it happen. That's what people feel. They do those acts because they think this is a chance to hit the reset button. But the truth is, those things are within us already. The chance to reset, the chance to start again. But the idea of beginning again is always important, and especially this time of year. Pope Francis refers to the Christmas season as a time for all of us to begin again. And he says this: "Just as in each of our lives, we always need to begin again, to get up again, to rediscover the meaning of the goal of our lives, so also for the great human family, it is always necessary to rediscover the common horizon toward which we are journeying, and that is the horizon of hope." There's no better time than Christmas and the end of the year for us to start thinking about how to emerge from that darkness into light. and be born again, to start again, to begin our life in a new way. And there's a ton of information written about this topic. I am going to share several people's views on this with you today. So first, I want to talk about Simon Forster and Jennifer Langstone, who wrote an article about healing, and it was a piece of the articles called "Healing is Hidden in the Shadows." This is one of the most important messages I want you to hear today. They say that what saves us from our pain and fear is never anything outside of us, but rather what is found in those hidden shadows. In the article, they said that explained how our life lessons actually come from two sources. One being the experiences related to choices we make. Relationships, friendships, decisions, jobs, the choices that we activate. And then two, those circumstances that occur that have nothing to do with the choices we make, such as losing a loved one or being impacted by a pandemic. Simon and Jennifer point out that we need to learn to embrace the shadows, invite the pain, and allow the darkness to become our teacher. That it's through the darkness that we learn the most. They also explain that the most profound lessons lie not in the situation, but in how we choose to relate to the experiences we have. So how are we recalling these? How are we looking at them? How are we embracing them? Have we chosen to make them those difficult spots for ourselves? And I want to share a quote from the book. It says, by surrendering to the natural flow of life, we learn that all experiences lead to love, even the darkest, most deeply painful ones. In essence, life is breaking us open to something more beautiful and boundless than our minds can perceive. This is an opportunity for us to transform ourselves. I truly believe that. And it's a matter of our willingness to embrace opportunities where transformation can occur. In these moments of darkness, in these situations where we are being forced to look at ourselves in those shadows, this is where it all comes to be. We are either going to be active participants in our life, or we are going to be recipients of our life experiences. And that's what we need to think about. Are we going to participate? Are we going to be the recipients of what life deals us? And how will we embrace what life brings our way? In her book, Dynamics of the Unconscious, Liz Green states that the first stage of any transformation is chaos. And she even says things blow up, they fall apart and go berserk. That's what happens. Our lives are completely blown up, and that's where transformation begins. Now, I think we would all agree that 2020 was fairly chaotic. And definitely a year that we all would look at and say, we've never experienced anything like this. Our whole world got turned upside down. I don't know about you, but from March until now, nothing seemed very familiar in the world around me. So I had to work hard at keeping the world within normalized, because it was very difficult to imagine just even getting used to the idea that we couldn't be together, that we have to wear masks, that we can't just freely go about our lives. That was all life lessons to learn. And now we can all say, hey, we did it. We lived through a pandemic. We're still here together. And we're lucky because not everyone can say what we can say. But as American author Z. Budapest said, it is the turmoil that serves as fertile soil for our soul to actually find eternal wisdom and insights. And eventually we find peace of mind. Now, wouldn't you say that we're wiser than we were when this year started? And haven't we had insights this year that we probably wouldn't have taken time to actually have because our busy lives just allowed us to keep going through the motions? This has been a year of reality. Looking at our lives, looking at what we want, looking at what we're experiencing, and trying to figure out how to understand and use that understanding and that wisdom to help us become better and wiser and more capable. Many of you have probably read the book Fire in the Soul. It's one of my favorites. And the lady who wrote the book is Joan Borshenko. And in the book, she says that there are three possible outcomes from every darkness we experience. And I want you to pay really close attention because I want you to think about which one of those you tend to gravitate to, okay? So the first one is we slowly put ourselves back together again, and life goes on in the same overtly or vaguely unsatisfactory way as it did before. We just keep chugging along, sort of in that mode of, yeah, I'm getting through it, but I'm not really present. She said the second way is we become so terrified or agitated or depressed that we stay in the desert of that mental illness that we're creating for ourselves. And she said the third option we have is to come out of these things transformed and to emerge with a new strength and a new wisdom and a new vision, and to take this as a catalyst for change. But the big question for us really today is, are we going to use this opportunity as a chance to hit the reset? And if so, what will that look like? What will we do to change? So I want to give us a couple of ways. The first thing is the opportunity we have every day to wake up, hit the reset, forget about what we thought yesterday, forget about what we went to bed with on our mind, and in that conscious moment, set our intentions for the day. What will this day look like for me? What do I want to experience in this day? What spiritual awareness can I recommit to hit that reset? The second thing is that as we rise out of bed, we can actually physically imagine rising to the occasion of the day, lifting our heads up to the light of day. How will we bring our best self? How will we bring our truth this day? And what will we express gratitude for? And the third thing, and this is also really important, is that when we look in the mirror for the first time in the day, that we look to see our divine light. That we're not looking at our hair or our face or our wrinkles or the dryness or our lips that are chapped. We are looking for the divine spirit that we can see through the eyes of our soul. That's where we start to envision a brighter light by the minute, and we see ourselves moving past our habitual experiences, our habitual existence. Now I make the coffee, now I brush my teeth, now I this, now I that. Just complete hit the reset and transform the actions of our day to push us into transforming our actual lives. change the pattern, break the cycle. Jesus believed that each of us was placed on this earth for a higher purpose. And he taught people to seek that purpose and to serve the world as gratitude to God for the gift of life. Now, can we say that that's true about every day? Probably not. Some days we're wondering why we're here. But that's the darkness. And that's where we get the most power, is in the darkness. One of the greatest roles we play is being spiritual beings and to mirror that reflection of the Christ Spirit within and become a person who can speak and act in ways that bring a positive impact for good in this world, from darkness to light. And Christmas time just reminds us of the importance one dark night made in the world. The light of the world was born, life changed for so many people, and it's one of the many stories that transformed our world. There were many people like Jesus who did that. But Jesus' story was so powerful because people changed who they were. But I want you to remember, that's nothing but a story about one human who decided to give of themselves to people in need. And those people began to reflect that light and that image. So no matter what role you're playing, you can make that same difference. You can bring your light to the world. We can do that. We have a few takeaways for today. If we're going to move from darkness to light, here are 3 things we can do. Recognize that every dark night is met with the light of day. It is after the dark that we can transform and emerge in the light. Number 2, to make a conscious choice to reset our lives. Rebirth is an awareness. It is not an act. Start each day anew. Imagine hitting reset. And number 3, mirror the reflections of the Christ Spirit within. Be the light of the world and help others do the same. When you see a dim light in a sad face, your job is not to judge the sad face in the dim light. It's to bring light to that situation and to imagine that person getting brighter so they feel the same about themselves. And our affirmation is, I transform my life through the Christ Spirit within. Our quote is from Joseph Campbell. The dark night of the soul comes just before revelation, when everything is lost and all seems darkness. Then comes the new life and all that is needed.